You should ask these tough questions during an interview. This is the focus group.
It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
Bueller.
Laugh. And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is the focus group with Tim Bennett.
Staunch.
And John Nash.
Keep your clothes looking neat and clean.
We're all business. Except when we're not.
Welcome to the focus group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host Tim Bennett. Find us every Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook or YouTube. Find our podcast, TFG Unbuttoned, every Tuesday. And, of course, focusgroupradio.com is where we want you to go to find out all about us. And all our media is housed there. So every show you might have missed and all the new ones coming up are there as well. Welcome to the week. Sorry about that long intro there, Tim.
I like the intro. We paid for the music. We might as well use it.
Let's see how pragmatic you are. So as I teased at the beginning, in Shop Talk, which will be a segment we do after our first break, that's going to be an article we're going to cover about some really tough questions. I don't know if they're that tough, but they're the kind of questions that I think engender a conversation in an interview scenario. We're going to talk about that in Shop Talk. But before that, we have Caught Our Eye. We're going to visit with our friends at Deep Discount. And, of course, right after our break, we have the only... we're all the only ones in the universe that do Tim Bennett's business birthday. I might see that has a nice ring to it too, right? Tim Bennett's business birthday.
Is that an alliteration almost? Bennett's business birthday, BBB?
Yeah. She sells seashells by the seashore. Did you have to do that in school? Did you ever talk like that?
The tongue twisters.
Peter
What we
Piper,
called them tongue twisters, didn't we?
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickles.
Pickled peppers.
Something like that, yeah.
You know what? I wanted to tell you something. So when we did our ice cream tour with back in the day with Volkswagen, you had we used to call it when we did TV commercials, the long Russian arm, which is almost like a selfie stick, but it keeps the camera. You would put your iPhone on it. So a friend of ours of the show, Rich Walker, the photographer, he had an extra, I guess a gimbal is what you would call it. So he gave me one because I said you and I wanted to try to experiment getting out of our home offices for doing the show since the event has happened. And so I've got this gimbal, which I want to practice with, but I haven't practiced yet. But I'm thinking maybe you and I can do maybe a walk-around show one time. What do you think?
It's a great idea, and I still have that that selfie stick gimbal thing from the ice cream tour. And you must have read my mind because I literally have been looking at ways of using the iPhone or the iPad, which has a really good camera built into it, as our camera. And we could technically, you could be out on your deck. You could be anywhere, and it might change it up a bit. So I think it's a great idea.
So I guess you wouldn't be able to read or have graphics, but you and I could just walk around and talk.
Well, you would be able to read and have graphics
or what?
If you had your iPad. Oh, you're talking about the production. You mean like how I pull it together here on my system? Yeah. I think we could still do that. I'm puzzling about that, and there are other technologies now, and maybe. Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. So, have you tried it with your phone or with this? And it would only work with your phone or with the camera we're using.
Well, it would work with my iPhone, but
okay.
I haven't took it. Rich gave me a quick primer, but of course it was photography quick. It would be like you are quick with it. So I've got to. I'm a little slow, so I've got to play with it. Brian's, have you used it yet? And I said, no, I've not used it yet. So I need to experiment with it myself and try to figure it out. But I think once I get it balanced, he was telling me how to balance it and make sure that I, there's a lot. I've watched a number of YouTube videos on how to use it as well. So I found that YouTube has been very helpful with a number of things. I fixed my toilet with YouTube.
You bring up an interesting point. We launched a new site for our company, Triberry, and it's triberry.co.co. And a lot of that was me learning how to. It's a dual project. I wanted to learn more about the web and about when I hire people to do this. I would like to know more about the process, so I can be a better art director and a better manager of that. And so I built the site, but YouTube was instrumental. Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, it was, I found a series of tutorials that once linked together, and once I watched them, I was off and running. And, what did you say to me one day, Tim? It's the second biggest search engine in the world, right? And what's the most common phrase that people plug in? How do I, right?
How do I, or how to, or
Yeah, how to do this. And you know, I like one day I had to take the pedals off my bike to take it to the shop, and I couldn't figure out the way the wrench was supposed to go. How do I take pedals? Right, 2-minute video, I got it figured out, done. And that is that's one of the saving graces of that platform, right?
No, it's been fantastic. I had to change a directional signal on the car, and I didn't want to go to the dealership. Same sort of thing. And Richard laughed at me. I saved probably $500 by doing it myself. I was able to take off the side blinker thing, put in a new light, and probably cost me $7 instead of $500. So
Wow.
you know, it took me a little longer, but I was able to figure it out. Everybody laughed. Our friends Lisa and Amy were like, "You got to be kidding me!" But and also with the toilet upstairs, it was leaking. It was a Kohler toilet, and I went online. Sure enough, somebody said how to fix a leaky Kohler toilet. Here's what you need to buy. Here's what you need to get. Here's how you remove the seal. Here's how you remove the cylinder. And again, instead of calling a plumber, now I will say I did try to fix a sink, and I had to call a plumber, and that ended up being a very expensive project. I got into it. I bought the tools, and then realized I was way over my head. I called my dad. My dad's like, call a plumber. I got way over my head and trying to fix.
When your dad tells you to call the expert, then you know that you better call the expert, right?
I thought YouTube only went so far on that one. So, but on simple fixes, it was good. So,
All righty. So let's continue on, and let's see what.
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
So I don't know. Well, I'll just do this, and then we can discuss what you make of it. So the headline is California lawmakers considering legislation that would ban retailers from displaying boys and girls sections. So this is in retail stores. So this is up in the California legislature. The bill is up for vote in California, but a number of states apparently have these sort of bills. It's the bill is being considered in California. It would prevent large retailers from displaying boys and girls signage for the toy and childcare aisles. And so if you were in a Target, for instance, or a Walmart or something with large stores that have over 500 or more employees, so large retailers, this bill, which is Assembly Bill 1084, it would require these retailers to maintain undivided areas of its sales floor where the majority of those items being offered are displayed regardless of whether an item has traditionally been marketed for either boys or girls. So they don't want to have things separated as boys or girls. And the same as with childcare, and I believe the same I want to say with clothing, but I'm not sure about that because it didn't go that deep other than it said childcare. And I didn't quite understand what childcare was. Is that diapers?
Yeah.
Or car seats or something?
I would think it would be anything that you'd have in a nursery or something, like onesies and I guess like toys for really small infants, plush toys and things like that.
A crib and that sort of thing, bottles, baby bottles. So then
mobiles, even like a mobile, that.
Okay. So then it said additionally, signage indicating whether a children's toy is for boys or girls is also not allowed. And online retailers who conduct business in California would have to label a toy and childcare sections with unisex labels. The bill is co-sponsored by two Assembly people. If passed, it would take effect in 2024. If retailers do not adhere to the new signage, they'd be penalized $1,000. They said that this law was inspired by Target, which had made this decision to remove gender-based signs in 2015. I did not know that. They said that they think this is a watershed moment, and this California State Assembly is just trying to play catch-up. They said one of the impetuses to this was one of the legislatures said that they were looking for a science toy for their daughter and were upset because the science toys were all housed in the boys' aisle. And she was looking for a science toy for her daughter. So this motivated the idea of saying that they should not have labels of boys and girls sections and have a safe space for children's items.
Okay. So do you want me to weigh in on that? Because
yes,
I saw this when you sent me the image, and your headline that you were going to be. You've done a great job of outlining it. It's a curious thing to me because I'm not sure. For example, take the assembly person's experience of looking for a science toy for their daughter in a store, and they happen to find it in the section for boys. That may not be a corporate decision. That could be a stocking person saying, where do you put this? Oh, put it in the boys section. And that
there was a chemistry set, right?
Yeah, and it could be like an unbiased. It could be a unconscious bias, right? Maybe science toys and I get that, but I think this is looking to solve a problem that I don't see it as a problem. And if back in the day when FAO Schwartz used to be open, they had boys, girls. Then they had science. Then they had playthings for, people that love engineering, and that could be either gender, right? So on a store-by-store basis, I'm not sure it makes a difference. And I don't know. This is the kind of thing that in the middle part of the country, and I don't mean to cast aspersions, they'll look at this and say, this is way too far. We get it. We understand that toys can sometimes be gender appropriate or gender assigned, right? There's no rule in the world that says a girl can't play with a Tonka truck, but usually they'll put those in the boys sections because boys are usually obsessed with trucks and cars, right? So
yeah, and that's right, and that's where I was somewhat confused by this because I thought immediately when I walk into a store like that or something and say I need to buy T-shirts. A lot of times I'll buy T-shirts at Target or if you go into Walmart and you need to buy a T-shirt or something, and I'll look up and I'll see men's, women's, whatever the area is, and I walk to it.
Yeah.
And so it would be the same thing if I went in and I wanted to if I was buying something for my nephew or my niece, I would look up to see boys or girls section. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, especially now when it comes to clothing.
I don't think there's anything wrong with having toys segregated. I don't think the kids have a problem with it. I think they were almost saying here that the kids are going to, if the toys are segregated, the kids are going to say, okay, these are only boys' toys and these are only girls' toys. And we should let the kids decide whether they're boys' toys or girls' toys. Similar to you and your Flatsy doll story, right? Whether you thought that was for boy or girl. But
show and tell, Flatsy, yeah.
Right. So, but I didn't. This is where I was confused by the whole thing because I do think, like you said, if it could have just been somebody stocked the science toy
randomly,
and maybe it was a chemistry set with two boys on it. So that, and traditionally, yes, probably people thought, okay, STEM is traditionally boys end up doing that, and we do need more women involved in science. So I get that, but I don't know. Same with clothing.
So would you call this?
If you were looking for boys and girls clothes, you don't want to just say children, because you're still then going to then look. How many times have you gone into a Banana Republic or something, or you look and you're like, okay, where's the women's clothes? Where's the men's clothes?
Exactly, and that's exactly how it happens. So this seems to be a mountain out of a molehill. This definitely seems to be more about a parent's perception than a child, because kids are going to run around store. They might even be at an age where they're reading and they're not even going to care. They just look at, oh, I want that, I like that. Last time our niece when she was really young from in San Francisco, she came to visit the city, and we always used to get her one toy at the Toys R Us and down in Times Square, and there was a guy demoing drones, like a little drone, and we're like, uh-oh, she was obsessed with the drone. Like, and now where would you put that, like, from a gender appropriate point of view, right? It's just a toy. So we got her the drone, but that's one of those things where if you look for the problem, you're going to find a problem.
Right. And I was wondering about that with art supplies or something, because I loved crayons as kids, or coloring books, or the paint sets and all that sort of thing. And I was trying to think in a traditional toy store, which unfortunately a lot of them don't exist anymore. But I thought, where were those? If you went to FAO Schwartz, I don't think they had those segregated.
They were
it was just
art supplies.
Section.
It was just art. Correct. You're right. Yeah. You're right, Tim. It was paint. It was all that stuff. So good article. I'm glad you brought it up, because it's just one of these things where the culture, everybody wants to seem to adjust something that doesn't necessarily require adjusting, because kids don't care.
Yeah. I think this is just over legislation, in my opinion, but
yeah.
We're old.
All right, mine is a little different, and it comes to us from the Swiss. And the headline reads, Switzerland approves ban on face coverings in public. Now, we have talked about this before. This is definitely, and I'll just set it up this way, the way the author did. Swiss voters approved a proposition Sunday banning facial coverings in public. Niqabs and burkas worn by almost no one, even among the country's Muslim population, will be banned outside of religious institutions. The new law doesn't apply to facial coverings for health reasons. And this Switzerland, surprisingly, is actually joining other European countries in this face covering ban, and it is France, Denmark, Netherlands, and Austria also have it as well. The Swiss government opposed the nationwide initiative as excessive and argued such bans should be decided by individual regions, two of which in Switzerland already have a burka ban. And it passed by a slim majority of 51.2%, and it was through the assembly, and also it had been put on a ballot initiative, so it had reached that level. But basically, their proposition is the burqa creates a barrier between the person wearing it and the environment, and thus prevents integration into society. Some feminist groups and progressive Muslims reportedly were supporters of the initiative, arguing that full face coverings are oppressive to women. The big deal here, though, is that this was brought to the public's attention by Switzerland's version of the far right. I'm of two minds. One, when someone says, well, we believe this kind of creates a barrier to integration and to meeting other people and to cross-cultural stuff, I get that. I also get that it's a religious thing. And then the third data point is, well, if if not many people in the country are actually wearing them, why the need for it? So it's kind of and Europe's been struggling with this for a while, and you had an incident down at DMV, right? Where
it's the whole assimilation thing. No, there was a woman in front of me in the DMV insisting on getting her driver's license photo. If you're watching in the video, she was dressed similarly to the woman that's on the video, or that's on the screen here, and all you could see were her eyes. And the woman said, "You need to remove your head covering for the photo ID." And she refused to remove it. And she said, well, you're not going to get your license then. I need to see your face because it's an ID. I need to see you. And so then the manager had to come over and the whole deal. But so, it's an issue, I think.
It only caught my eye because we've discussed it in the past, and it's passed by a slim majority, and it was the far right of Switzerland, which, I don't always think of Switzerland as having a far right, but they do. So there you go, right? It's
this is actually, they talk about Europe, and I know this happened in France first, I believe, and it's happening in the Scandinavian countries, and as you mentioned, and they're predicting it's a matter of time before it comes here
to the U.S.
Yeah, and we're going to confront this
and deal with it. Yeah,
right. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. What do you think?
I will be curious to see what the public debate on that is at that point, right? I mean, when that actually happens, when it comes to our shores and we have we don't really have robust conversations about things. People just yell at each other on social media platforms, and everybody in the middle just kind of scratches their heads. So,
yeah.
So so many of you know, Deep Discount is a partner of ours here on the Focus Group, and we would love you to start shopping at Deep Discount by going to our site first, focusgroupradio.com, and clicking on the Deep Discount logo, which is a shark. I haven't done Sharky in a while, which is actually a pirate, but that's the best I'm going to do. So, March is a site-wide sale, and site-wide means everything's on sale, from movies, books, apparel, video games, everything, LPs, actual LPs. And we always have fun on the site-wide sales. So, Mr. Bennett, what did you pick for your pick this week?
Well, this was just released or re-released, originally done in 1991, but released again 2/23/2021, so just last month. Madonna's Truth or Dare.
I remember it quite well.
in DVD, and for me, I think culturally, it was a tipping point. I think culturally in our society, we had Clinton was coming into power. There was a change politically, I think, as a country. Madonna certainly was at the time very controversial.
Yep.
And I think this was a new sort of movie, right? And she very much challenged conventional thinking, what it was to be a rock star or a pop star, and she challenged religion and conventions within religion. Remember, she was banned in a number of places or threatened to be arrested for her Like a Prayer depictions on stage. So I remember seeing this for the first time in the theater, and everybody walking out and just being amazed with what they had seen. And so I really think this culturally was a tipping point, and I've loved it, and I still to this day will watch it if I come across it somewhere. But I think it's something you should have in your documentary that you should have in your collection. Sandra Bernhardt's in it, Al Pacino, Warren Beatty, Antonio Banderas is
Yeah,
in it too. She has a little thing for him.
a young and very handsome Antonio
Right.
Banderas.
So,
Excellent
who'd you pick?
choice. I loved your pick, by the way, and I still remember the theater I saw it in and the night I saw it in. I picked a movie called Drive, and I saw Drive many years ago. Ryan Gosling, Carey Mulligan, Bryan Cranston, who you've been watching in Breaking Bad, Albert Brooks, Oscar Isaac, Christina Hendricks, and Ron Perlman. Ryan Gosling stars as a Hollywood stunt driver for Movies by Day and moonlights as a wheelman, the getaway driver for Criminals by Night. Though a loner by nature, he falls in love with his neighbor, Carey Mulligan, and the story goes from there. I love Ryan Gosling. I love Carey Mulligan, and I think this is a vehicle and a movie that I definitely want to see again. So that's available on Blu-ray for $11.63. And what is our release this week?
The new release is Ruth, Justice Ginsburg in her own words on DVD. And I mean, is there any more you need to explain other than Ruth Ginsburg, right? I mean,
yeah, really, what a fantastic woman, right?
So it's a documentary, and it has photos. There's sketches, audio clips, video footage, and it explores her career and really a lot of her work from the 70s up through her ascension to the Supreme Court and all that she did for women and for breaking barriers and for fighting for rights. And she really talk about somebody in later age who became such an icon, right? And and people that respected her, and what a huge loss to the Supreme Court, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and to the country. So you can get that at deep discount. It's released this week, and it comes out. Is it a Blu-ray or is it a?
It says
a
here.
DVD?
It says here DVD. Yeah, and being that it's released basically on the 9th, like Tuesday of this past week, it means it's like a brand new documentary, which means there might be some interesting new footage available as well.
So that's cool. So head over to focusgroupradio.com, click on the deep discount logo. I recommended Madonna's Truth or Dare. John recommended a movie called Drive. And the release this week is Ruth, Justice Ginsburg in her own words. Again, it's deep discount. They've been unsinkable since 2001, which is a new tagline, which I happen to love. So be sure to head over to Deep Discount and support them for supporting us. And we believe they have some of the best media and deals over there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got some shop talk for you as well as a business birthday. So stay tuned.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. The Focus Group, an entertaining look at the outside of business. For your convenience, listen anytime, anywhere, anyway, anyhow, and on anything. Got it? Head over to focusgroupradio.com and pick your poison. We're all business, except when we're not.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is our website. We urge you to go there and check out our partners and sponsors, as well as all our media and Unbuttoned, TFG Unbuttoned to be precise, our Tuesday podcast. Okay, so coming up in this segment, we have the world-famous, universe-famous, unique business birthday, and we have shop talk. But before we kick off, I just wanted to say that I saw an article in Inc. magazine that kind of just made me scratch my head, and it was an announcement that the Internal Revenue Service is planning on increasing the number of audits they plan to conduct on small businesses. So why did I scratch my head? And I kind of like, we keep hearing about with the event is how many small businesses have taken it on the chin, have closed, need help, etc. We know there's the PPP loan program available. The SBA has programs available. But why would you, on one hand, be saying you're going to help businesses, and then the next year you're telling your revenue collection department, the IRS, which has really broad-ranging powers, by the way, and I think we all know that they're going to start auditing small businesses at a higher rate? I guess it's because they're fearing fraud or who knows what, but one more thing to worry about, right?
What a waste of time. I don't understand what, well, to me it seems like a waste of time knowing that so many small businesses have been suffering, particularly with the event, in terms of even trying to make rent.
Yeah.
or trying to keep employees busy or employed. So I don't know what they're looking for. They should spend a little more time doing. Well, we'll leave it at that, I guess. We'll have to talk to our friends at the IRS.
All right. We do know some folks, but I should soft pedal this just ever so slightly to say that the amount of audits they actually do has been at an all-time low for at least 8 or 9 years now, because Congress repeatedly cuts their budget, and the amount of professionals they have to actually go in to do an audit is very difficult. They're small. And the thing is, though, when you approach a small business or an individual, you're going to get a different result than you approach a corporation that has stacks of lawyers that could fight and say, no, we're not going to, we don't agree, we're not going to pay that. I don't know. It just seems like they're picking off low hanging fruit.
Do other countries have as onerous a compliance for taxes than we do?
I think so. Yeah. So their taxation situation is different in the sense that they are paying more in taxes.
Right.
But it's happening in different ways. It's happening at the cash register for the value-added tax. Right. It's happening directly at their paycheck point where they're getting paid because medical and all that stuff's coming out. And then as far as income tax and stuff like that, that's a great question. I would have to, if I answer it in the affirmative, I might be wrong, and I'm not sure about it. But I'm guessing that they have either it's a similar system, but maybe it's just because it's the U.S. and the IRS always like terror reigns when you hear that word, right?
Well, it just always seems like we've always got this tax issue, and the rest of the world seems to pay a lot of taxes, but they don't seem to have all of this, dodging around of. You don't hear of tax cheats and leaders of other countries as much as we seem to hear it here.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So maybe who knows? We'll see what happens with 45 now that his taxes are released.
All righty. I think we got something special.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
Back in the day when John and I had to keep the funnel full and fill 2 hours, the business birthdays used to, they would take longer sometimes, or we would have several. And then we had it down to, after 14 years, just doing one and picking one. But today we've got something special. We actually are going to do two because there's two short ones.
I should have confetti come across the screen or something.
I know. We should make it special. And I didn't know which one to pick, so I picked them both. The first one is a gentleman named Sidney Gold, or Joe Gold, born March 10th, 1922. He died July 11th, 2004, at 82 years old, an American bodybuilder and businessman. Of course, you would know by the last name. He was the founder of Gold's Gym, and later on the World Gym. He was credited as being the father of bodybuilding and the fitness craze in the U.S. He was the youngest of 4 siblings. He developed an interest in bodybuilding at the age of 12 when he saw his sister-in-law's design for strengthening her arms. His father had, which was like a makeshift junkyard in the backyard. His sister-in-law had taken 2 buckets and filled them with sand and then had a broom attached to both ends, and she was doing curls. So he and his brother got the idea to make some equipment out of old scrap metal in the father's backyard. And then they headed themselves down to Muscle Beach in Santa Monica. And so he, after high school, he made his way to the United States Merchant Marine. He served in the U.S. Navy. He ended up getting injured in a torpedo attack in the Korean War, but was bodybuilding, became a professional bodybuilder. John, you're going to like this. He auditioned for the Mae West group of muscle men. And Mae West took one look at him and said, "I'll take all of you."
What a great thing, right? I remember the whole Mae West. She used to, because she would surround herself with these guys, the big arms, the whole bit.
So he ended up touring with the Mae West review. He also appeared as an extra in one of your favorite movies, John, The 10 Commandments. And also Around the World in 80 Days. In 1965, Joe opened the first Gold's Gym in Venice, California. It quickly became a landmark. It says, despite the dirty fixtures, which I thought, whatever queen wrote this, right? Despite the dirty fixtures, it became a landmark. He, one of his early devotees was Arnold Schwarzenegger, who of course, we all know famous Arnold, not only from his being governor of California, but of course being a bodybuilder and then an actor. But they said he trusted He trusted, Arnold Schwarzenegger trusted Joe and was also a father figure to him. And so Joe ended up opening a number of gyms, sold the Gold's Gym chain, and then opened up a franchise of World's Gyms. And then later on, sold those as well. But he died at 82 in Marina del Rey, July 2004.
God, it's a good. See, I love some of the business birthdays because you get to profile people whose names we've seen, right? Like Gold's Gym, right? But my favorite piece, and I think you nailed it for me, is a Mae West guy. If you know old Hollywood, then you know how she used to. Yeah, I just think that's funny.
And they said he had a kind of a sarcastic wit and he used to make fun of people at the gym, but that was part of his shtick of getting people to encourage them. And he was very much a believer of people should be fit, and no matter what you did, you should do it. This other guy, I was totally mistaken by him. Alfred Peet, born March 10th, 1920, died in 2007 at 87 years old. He was a Dutch-American entrepreneur and founders of Peet's Coffee and Tea in Berkeley, California. I, for some reason, thought Peet's came out of Texas. And I used to love Peet's. We used to get it in Santa Monica when I would travel. And John and I, when we'd go to California quite a bit, I would always go to Peet's because before it came east, it was really the only place you could find it was out in California. And so I started reading about his bio, and I was actually kind of shocked to find out that he was the one credited with starting the specialty coffee revolution in the U.S.
Pre-Starbucks?
Well, you'll see how they were intertwined, how Starbucks and Peet's were intertwined, which I never knew. So it said he was credited with starting the specialty coffee revolution in the U.S. Among coffee historians, he was called the Dutchman who taught Americans how to drink coffee. He taught his style of roasting beans to Jerry Baldwin, Gordon Balker, and Zev Siegel, who with his blessing, took the technique to Seattle and founded Starbucks in 1971. Peet later distanced himself from Starbucks because they experimented with too many ultra-dark roasts. Peet later quoted as saying, "You didn't learn anything from me." He didn't like the fact that they were roasting coffee too dark. He learned in the Netherlands his dad had a small coffee roasting establishment. He ended up being a tea taster in New Zealand and emigrated to San Francisco, opened a coffee shop in San Francisco. He was dismayed by the quality of coffee in the U.S. He said it tasted like old World War II rations. And he said most Americans were used to drinking coffee beans that were brewed from freeze-dried beans in a can, which I never realized that. So he started roasting. He ended up having a couple stores around the Berkeley area. He kept it very limited and just for quality control, would only roast small batches. But he mentored an awful lot of people, and they list all the different people he mentored. And later on,
hold on. When you say he mentored, were these people who ended up becoming kind of like coffee connoisseurs themselves and would understand the real brewing process and the art of it?
Right. So aside from the guys who started Starbucks, there was another guy called Sal Bonavita who he helped and ended up buying his stores in California, who later sold them to the folk at Starbucks around the Berkeley and California area. They said, although Peet was known for his severe demeanor, he had a genuine willingness to help other entrepreneurs. And they said, so any of you that are listening, Anderson's Coffee in Austin, Texas, Jamie Anderson, Pegasus Coffee in Washington, Spinelli's Coffee in San Francisco, O'Hari's Roasters in Santa Fe, Mexico, New Mexico, the Coffee Connection in Amsterdam, and probably one of the most famous, George Howell, was a notable example from the Coffee Connection in Boston, who was credited who was the inventor of the Frappuccino, which he did with Peet, and Starbucks later acquired that business, and now we have the Starbucks Frappuccino. So I never knew Peet was this influential and intertwined with coffee. I always thought it was Starbucks like everybody else. But this Alfred Peet from the Netherlands was really the guy, so happy birthday to Peet.
Well said, by the way, in terms of the fact that he was so influential. And I love when you said intertwined, right? So he's at the foundation of so many of these like little boutique coffee things. And then you find out that the Starbucks guys, which turned this into a global empire, right? It's amazing. Very cool.
He was very much the guy behind it, and they said they went to Seattle with his blessing to open up Starbucks, and
Even
and he
more
was really
cool,
the
by
one
the
who
way.
taught him how to do the roasting.
What you just said is even more cool. It wasn't. Remember a week or two ago we talked about the sordid tale of the Chippendales, where that guy hired a hitman to kill the business partner and then the competition. Like this is a different kind of business thing. This is you. I will mentor you. You'll learn. Congratulations, you've gone out and you've made something fantastic, and there's no jealousy there. I love that kind of story, right? Because that's the way it should be, I think. We should all be happy for each other's successes. Very excellent. I'm so glad we had a flashback to the old days where you would do more than one birthday, and you picked two great ones. So very well done, Tim.
So happy birthday to the boys.
All right.
Joe-
So
Joe and Al.
as we talked about at the very beginning of the show, and if you've stuck with us, now you're getting to Shop Talk. And Shop Talk this week is an interesting one. It's a career expert shared 5 questions that she wished more candidates, she says, has the guts to ask during a job interview. We're going to expand this a little bit to say that these are questions that if you're a sole proprietor, you're an agency, you work with customers, these are the kinds of questions that get the real answers and give you a better way to wrap your head around a problem, an organization, or perhaps the job you're going to be stepping into. And I really am hoping that people are doing this already. I don't know, but I think there's a fear factor in interviews, and even when we're courting clients, for example, that you're kind of cautious. But I think the more you're out there, the more you ask honest and thoughtful questions, the better the dialogue's going to be. So, what was your take on this before we go into the 5 questions, She?
Yeah, there was one question on here that I've actually had asked before in interviews, and then I had stopped asking it.
You asked it to an interviewee, or you would ask it to?
I'd ask it if I was interviewing it. I'd ask the question a number of times. And then I did stop asking it. So I was curious when it came up again because I saw it here and I thought it was and I'll tell you when we get to it. But I did laugh about it. My one thought, though, in some of these is I often wondered if you set yourself up with some of these questions, because if you're asking a question you don't necessarily know the answer to, I wonder if that gets you in trouble. And I thought that could be another issue of how you couch the question. But
good point.
Have you asked any of these questions in an interview, one way or the other, either as an interviewer or an interviewee?
Yeah, in certain forms I have. And you just literally said something that I'm so glad you did. You do run the possibility. You do run into the possibility of stepping into something that you didn't mean to by opening a door or asking a question. And however, if you're nimble on your feet mentally, you could turn that into a positive as well. Some examples we're going to give you. One of the first questions she said that you should think of asking in an interview is, what are the biggest challenges I'll face, if you got the job in the first 90 days, and how will success be measured? Now, I broke this into 2 things. Like, as an agency, Tim and I often ask our clients what their metric for measuring us is going to be. What is their success metric? And we actually have a very spirited conversation of coming to an agreement on what we all think is going to be a success metric. But when you're an individual stepping into a job, asking what the first 90 days is going to have for you, I just think you're basically saying to them, hey, look, I'm stepping into something new. It's an existing organization. There are processes, et cetera. What am I up against? Smartly, and then someone
Right.
a good interviewer may say, well, it's a great question, because you're going to have to do this. Did you like this one, or would you adapt it?
No, I thought this was a good one. I think shortening it would be, what does success look like, or how will you measure what does success look like in this role, or is there something or is there something that's not been done in this position before? I don't know, that's the wrong way of saying it.
You know what? You actually nailed it correctly. You got it. You shortened it down to, how is success going to be measured? I think that's a great one.
Yeah. The second question, this is the one that I used to ask, and this is the one that's been asked of me. Is there anything about my background that makes you hesitant to move me forward in the interview process? So I've been asked this one, and I've asked this one myself. And this one, I think, it could be dangerous on both sides. I've given employee reviews. There's a very smart employee that worked for me, John. You know his name, John.
Yep.
And he was looking for a raise. And he deserved a raise, but the company at the time was not giving out lots of raises. And I remember him saying to me, is there any reason why I would not be, is there any reason why my performance this year would not or would exclude me
Yeah.
from getting a raise this year. Well, no, your performance was great, but we're not giving raises. I mean, so it was one of those things where it was it was a difficult question because he asked the question and no, there was no reason. And that's why I think when people say to you, and I've asked the question, is there anything in my background that would exclude me from the position I'm interviewing for, or would exclude me from moving forward in this process? So you're putting them on the right. You're putting them on the spot because they're then going to essentially say, well, no, you're going to go to the next step, or are they going to be honest with you and say, well, quite frankly, we've had other candidates that were a little stronger than you?
So, a ripple on this is one I heard for a friend who was interviewing for a position at a not-for-profit organization, and the board was voting on his moving forward. So I think there might have been 8 people on the board or 7 or something. And he basically said something like this. He said, are there any board members are there any objections that have been brought up to my candidacy by any board members? And would you like me to deal with them directly? Can we have a conversation about it? So in a way, he flipped it around and put the onus back on the board, the individuals that were hiring. And he actually got an honest answer and said, yeah, we have 2 members who are worried about your background and in this area, and would you be strong enough to, and he said, well, thank you. That's a challenge I will, tackle immediately, and let's have a continued dialogue about that. So
did he contact those individuals directly
he asked
and say, I understand you have a concern about X, Y, and Z?
Yep. He actually went back to the person who was leading the recruiting operation and said, I would like to have a phone call with each of these guys, or men or women. I'm not sure which it was, but and they were both productive. And it wasn't like he changed minds. He just wanted to know where he stood with them, so that when they all talked mutually about success metrics, at least he knew where they were coming from and what they were looking for.
Good for him. Wow.
So this is this next one is in my opinion a bit tricky, but I'm going to say it this. The question is, how does my background compare to other candidates you're interviewing? In the world of agencies, Tim and I have often said, where have the other shops that you've worked with gone wrong? That's a different thought process, right, Tim?
Right. Yeah.
Do you like this one at all? I mean, I know the minute you say, how do you compare to other candidates, I don't know. This is a tricky one to me. I'm not sure I would ask this. I might ask as an agency, what really worked for you with your last shops and what didn't you like? Because that's a process thing, perhaps.
Yeah, the only time this ever worked for my favor, and it was 40 years ago. I was in an interview in college, and the recruiter was kind of a hard ass, and I was not interested in the job. I ended up getting the job.
No.
But he asked me that exact question. He goes, "Why are you better than everyone else I'm talking to today?" And I said, I don't want to talk ill of any of the other people.
Classmates.
And he said, well, they all talked ill of you.
Hmm.
And I said, really? He goes, yeah, here's the list. And he hands me the list of everyone that interviewed. He says, go down the list and tell me why you're better than every one of those people. I said, let's go. And I did. I went right down the list and ended up getting a call back. I was the only one who got a call back. Wow. So that's not my style. But I remember saying, I said, well, she's got a great GPA, but that's all she's done. She's not done anything outside of the classroom. This one, I remember going through each person. I said, if they've spoke ill of me, now who knows whether they did or not. I'm sure they did. But, and that's what he said. He said, well, they spoke ill of you, so I'm giving you the chance.
Mm-hmm. Good one. Good example, too, by the way. Smart example. Now, what's our next one here?
So number 4, I know the event has caused unprecedented disruption for many companies. How are you and the managers doing?
Tim, we're so on the same wavelength. I literally scratched this off.
What do you think we're doing?
And by the way, wouldn't that be
we're coping.
Wouldn't that be chit chat that you would have at the start?
Yeah.
Hey, do you have any of you have kids that have to be home, and how are you handling the schooling and this
all bets are off. Mm-hmm. We're managing. Obviously, everyone's tired of Zoom. Mm-hmm. Everybody misses the human connection. There's a lot that goes on beyond a Zoom meeting and a phone call. We can't wait till you all get back together. That's how we're coping. Right. Next.
And their last question here, which is reflecting on your own experience, what have you seen the company do to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion? I had problems with this one as well. I'm not sure that I would maybe pick one thing as opposed to 3. Maybe even just saying, how's your experience been in the company with moving forward or with growth? But I'm not sure. Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, what are the opportunities for advancement? And advancement's the wrong word, but what are the opportunities for growth or for other responsibilities or for lateral moves? Or is growth the right word? I don't even know if growth.
No,
is the right word.
Yeah, but I know where you're going. But it's anything other than the way this is worded, in my opinion. But so out of the 5, I think there are at least 3 that are really good, and I just think it's an honesty thing. I think if you really like it and you want the position and you feel comfortable with the people you're talking to, why not ask them questions? I don't go crazy, but some of them are, I think the challenges is a good one. I'm not sure that interviewer that asked you about your classmates. That was kind of...
Yeah. He was a hard ass. This diversity, equity, and inclusion one, people will say we have, employee resource groups and we don't discriminate and all that other stuff that you would expect any company right now would do or have. But I also think, again, that one is a little bit dangerous to be stepping in right away.
Agreed.
In my opinion, somebody will be critical of me for saying that, but that's just my own opinion on that one, to open up that issue right then and there in an interview. I'm not, unless you just want to know, hey, I'm out and open and I want to make sure it's a comfortable environment for me. But hopefully you did your homework before you get there. So that was a great article, John. I think those 5 questions are good, and we should implement them or some version of those in your interviewing process. So, hey, we want to thank you all for joining us today. And we hope everybody's masking up and getting your shots and getting in line and doing what you need to do.
I think they're all getting in line or clicking on the web
healthy.
to get in line.
Did you sign up yet? Are you signing up, Mr. Nash?
I'm signing Bob up because Bob is eligible, and I'm not yet, but we will see.
You will be. Get in line. Get in line.
Get in
I know
line.
some states, it depends on your state,
Exactly.
whether you're in 1A, B, C, D, whatever. So some states are earlier than others. So it depends where you live. But we hope everybody's staying healthy. We want to thank you, John, for bringing us out here to everybody each week. Be sure to go to focusgroupradio.com to find out all about us and all of our media that's housed there. Thanks to our friends at Deep Discount. Be sure to go over there and shop as well and support them for supporting us. We hope everybody has a great week, and we'll see you on TFG Unbuttoned on Tuesdays. Take care.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.